So let's look at a little bit more detail about what we mean by this hydrogen battery resource. It's not a real battery, it's a fuel to drive fuel cells. And it's a resource because it's prepared, it's renewable using curtailed production. And as the penetration of solar and wind is expected to continue to increase, the availability of otherwise curtailed solar and wind resources is also going to go up, expected to go up massively, according to this estimate in the chapter. And the hydrogen battery resource is required to support the grid when loads exceed available wind and solar. I hope it's clear what this is saying. Solar and wind are intermittent, hence you have a way of meeting the needs when loads go up and down. When the loads go down, you curtail the production of solar and wind, and you have, of course, the spinning resources where turbines are just spinning and not producing energy, as we talked about before. Because solar and wind are not available whenever you want to call them up, they are curtailed to meet the load when it goes up. So, what do you do with that curtailed solar and wind resources? You also use hydrogen battery resource to overcome the limitations of electric batteries: degradation, cost, self-discharging, and inability to accommodate seasonal shifts in energy demand. So the electric batteries, you charge them, but if you leave them sitting there, they're going to slowly discharge, right? We talked about that before, just like even the car battery, if you let it sit there for a while. Systems analysis such as HyGrid, which is a software in California used to project or forecast grid loads and so on, energy demand. So such analyses are consistently demonstrating that hydrogen in general and renewable hydrogen in particular is required as a major cornerstone in achieving 100% renewable grid. So the debate is really about the details about how to augment the storage to, in addition to ensuring that there is a 24/7 load following electricity supply. Okay, so that's where the hydrogen resource or renewable hydrogen battery comes in. A number of sources of renewable hydrogen are emerging. When we say renewable hydrogen, we again mean that you produce hydrogen without greenhouse gas or criteria pollutants. So here are some examples. Electrolytic renewable hydrogen. We already saw in pathway 2 there was an electrolytic plant that was shown in the map. The generation of renewable hydrogen through electrolysis that we just saw is expected to be the largest source that can absorb the levels of projected curtailed energy. So curtailed energy is seen as a resource that's wasted, but if it can be tapped into for generating renewable hydrogen resource, then that would be the largest stores. Store the energy by injection into natural gas or dedicated hydrogen pipeline, and convey the energy to points of use. Injecting hydrogen into the natural gas or dedicated hydrogen pipeline. So remember when we said hydrogen is pumped into gasoline to increase the energy density? That's the same idea here of injecting it into natural gas. You raise the octane rating or the energy density. Okay, so energy density is a problem. We didn't mention clearly in the combustion processes. You have fossil fuels, combustion, lots of losses in combustion and movement of pistons and cylinders and so on. But you also have the energy efficiency of the fuel itself, which can be increased by pumping hydrogen into it. And there are trigeneration methods where a smaller scale source is the generation of carbon neutral hydrogen from a stationary fuel cell operating on biogas produced, for example, at wastewater recovery facility that we looked at. Okay, water is being used. Usually it's being run off into the ground or into a local water body, river, and eventually into the ocean and so on. And there are lots of issues associated with that. And in the so-called circular economy, water is considered that it can be used in a circular economy where it's not sent out, but it's recycled, reused. Blue water, gray water, green water, and so on. Different grades of water can be recovered and used for different purposes, from gardening, from bathroom, for flushing, and some clean sources actually even recover drinking water from water resource recovery. Okay, so these can process human sewage, food waste, landfills, dairies, and these facilities typically produce biogas rich in methane. The trick there is, when we say renewable hydrogen, you don't want any leakage of methane or burning of methane to blow off excess methane like they do at oil and natural gas wells, because that produces either CO and CO2, carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide, other than the criteria pollutants. But methane itself has a very high greenhouse warming potential. Its warming potential is about 25 times that of CO2. So you definitely don't want to release methane. Trigeneration captures and uses the biogas to produce carbon neutral electricity and heat. By operating fuel cell with more biogas than required for the electricity and heat alone. So we're talking about CHP here. Trigeneration is electricity production, heat production, and hydrogen production from biogas. Excess carbon neutral hydrogen is made available at the stack and can be extracted and injected into natural gas and dedicated renewable hydrogen pipeline. At wastewater recovery facilities and dairies, the heat can be used to support digesters where the bio waste is converted, is anaerobically digested to produce methane. Okay, so aerobic digestion would just release CO2 because there is respiration using oxygen in breaking down the hydrocarbons produced in bio waste. But the digesters are anaerobic, so they produce methane through other chemical reactions, anaerobic reactions. So they displace fossil fuel barriers and further reducing CO2 emissions. Trigeneration is also epitome of sustainability, namely recovering and converting the energy from human and animal waste to renewable electricity, renewable heat, and renewable hydrogen. Okay, so stationary fuel cell systems, in that case, these are stationary fuel cell systems we are looking at, with the catalytic electrolysis system here, which can use the biogas. You can see the biogas adding to this hydrogen pipeline here, and the natural gas pipeline, which can use the excess hydrogen to increase its octane value, its energy density. So stationary fuel cell systems are a resource along with energy storage to enable and manage a 100% renewable grid. A match for the utilization of the renewable hydrogen generated from otherwise curtailed wind and solar resources. Okay, so they are kind of details, but you just want to be aware that there are these pathways in which you are driving towards 100% renewable energy production and grid and distribution by taking care of the intermittency with storage systems, which themselves can be driven by fuel cells, stationary fuel cells, which need a fuel like hydrogen, and the hydrogen itself can be produced as a part of the power generation and transmission. So you see how the system is trying to be made very efficient, as well as without greenhouse gas emission and criteria pollutant emission. Great ideas, right?